Clelia Barbieri was born to Giacinta Nanetti and Giuseppe Barbieri on February 13, 1847, in a village called Budri of San Giovanni in Prosecco, in the outskirts of Bologna, Italy, and the Archdiocese of Bologna. Clelia was very poor growing up, so she was not educated. After her much contested wedding, the wealthy Giacinta accepted the poverty of a laborer's life and moved from a comfortable home to the humble cottage of her father-in-law, Santa Barbieri. Nevertheless, forming a family built on a rock of faith and a totally Christian life. The mother taught Clelia to love God early in her life, placing her in the heart desire for sanctity. One day, Cecilia asked her mother, "Mother, how can I become a saint?" In 1855, Clelia's father died when she was only 8 years old. She became more saintly and dedicated. She lived in charity, completely dedicated to loving her fellow men without restraint. She forgot and even ignored how she looked. She was happy to belong to the Lord, and her happiness rested, in fact, in thinking only of Him. Something, however, compelled her to turn towards her fellow men, the poorest and most tired, who often waited in vain for some small sign of love and brotherhood. Something burned inside her, and she felt that she must go, to give herself to all God's poor. She loved the solitude which would permit her to reach God more fully, but she left the protection of her home and went forth to inspire by her all-consuming love for mankind. At Clelia's time in history, there existed in the church a group called the Christian Catechism Workers, who were mainly men whose aim it was to combat the prevalent religious negligence of the time. Clelia became one of the workers. At first, Clelia was admitted as an assistant teacher and was the least important member, but soon her surprising talents and preparation evidenced themselves so that the senior members placed themselves under her leadership. Having rejected several flattering marriage proposals, the group of young ladies which had sprung up from the catechism group elected Clelia as their leader and conceived the idea of a community devoted to an apostolic and contemplative way of life. This was to be a life of service which would spring from the Eucharist with daily Holy Communion and would ennoble itself with the teaching of catechism to the farmers and laborers of the area. The idea could not become a reality immediately due to the political situation at the time of Italy's unification from 1866 to 1867. However, it was finally realized on May 1, 1868, when, with the bureaucratic and local problem solved, Clelia and her young friends moved into the so-called teacher's house where the workers for the Christian Catechism had formerly met. After moving into the teacher's house, a series of extraordinary events in the form of assistance to the young community occurred which were undoubtedly the work of divine providence, written without the group called have never survived. The small group was inspired by Clelia's physical and moral sufferings in her darkest hours and in the absurd humiliation she endured at the hands of those who should have been more understanding. However, her faith and devotion in prayer were always extraordinary. The other workers soon called her mother, though she was only 20 years old. Clelia died on July 13, 1870, with the happiness of one going to meet her beloved Lord. Being only 23 at the time of her death, Clelia Barbieri is the youngest founder of a religious community in the history of the Church.